Hello and welcome to Victory in Vegas, the MMA betting podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be breaking down for you UFC Fight Night 122 in Shanghai, China. I'm your host as always, Newsome, and I'd normally with my co-host Namreka, but due to other commitments, he can't be here for this one. So, just to talk a little bit about the card itself, I mean, at first glance, I thought, it's a really slim card. Definitely not too much hype around it, but I think once you dive into the card and start looking at the fights, there's some top talent coming out of the Chinese MMA scene, which is great, with some really good records, fighting current fighters from the UFC roster. So this is their biggest fight of their careers, and I'm actually quite looking forward to this one. I've picked out a few good plays with bets that I didn't really expect to initially. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So, as always, I've collected my bets together. I'm going to be breaking down those bets fully for you, explaining why I've bet them and what I've seen during the tape study. At the end of that, anything else that I've decided not to bet on, I'm going to be quick firing for you. Not in any sort of length of detail, just quick pick of who I think might win the fight, a little bit why, and maybe what round and things like that. There is one exception though. It is the main event with Michael Bisping and Kelvin Gastelum. I haven't got a bet on it, but I just feel that it's the main event. There's a lot of conversations going around on MMA Twitter about the fight, and I just got a couple of points that I really want to get across. So even though I don't have a bet on that fight, it's just something I'm going to break down anyway. So, diving straight in, and that's the one we'll start with. So we've got Michael Bisping coming in on short notice against Kelvin Gastelum, and it's a fight that I think is going to be a lot closer than what some people anticipate. And I'm actually going against the grain here, I think, and I'll be picking Bisping to win the fight, but it's not anything with real confidence, and there is a reason why I can't put a bet on it, which I'll explain shortly. But he's just come off the loss to GSP a few weeks ago, taking this fight on short notice because Anderson Silva got popped by USADA. Kelvin Gastelum, young hungry fighter. It's in a new division for him as well. He's had a couple of fights in here now, and I don't know. When I first saw the fight announced, I lent Bisping instantly, and I thought, again, nothing of a strong lean, but a lean nonetheless, and I really thought that he could beat Kelvin. And the more I thought of it, the more I thought, actually, he is aging, and can he really get through a young hungry guy that's going to be looking to win a fight and taking a big step up the UFC rankings. And I really started going backwards and forwards to it, and I saw some lines came out, and I saw Kelvin at minus 150, and at the time I thought, what, that could end up being a really, really good price if I did see a bet in this fight, and if I did lean Kelvin. So I did a bit of an emergency tape on it, and I went into that looking to try and bet Kelvin, to try and see anything that I could to think, he's actually going to beat Bisping. And I started off with the Weidman fight, and this was a fight that really opened people's eyes to Kelvin and the step up to middleweight, because I do think the bigger middleweights in that division are just too big for Kelvin to really handle and have his way with, in a way. And we saw that against Weidman. Weidman was big middleweight, and it was the biggest middleweight I think Kelvin had fought. So he went in there, and I started noticing Kelvin really struggling to get inside of Chris Weidman. And I know Weidman had the takedowns, and that threat can sometimes, the threat of the takedown can sometimes put a fighter off his striking game, afraid to overcommit in case he gets taken down. And I get that side of it, but apart from the one left hand that Kelvin landed in that fight that actually dropped Weidman, and he probably would have won the fight if there was maybe 30 seconds left on the clock, but he's just struggled to really get inside. And I think he might have the same issues here. Now, for me, Bisping's a much better striker than Weidman. He doesn't have the takedown threat, so Kelvin can commit a little bit more. But I think ultimately, if he struggles to get inside of Bisping, Bisping can just keep on the outside and pop it in. 1-2s, quickly moving in and out of range. I do agree with what some people are saying in regards to, his cardio's looking a little bit worse. You can just really see a slight bit of aging in him as a fighter, but, he had a great cardio anyway, so even if that has got a little bit worse, it's still going to be good cardio. I still think he can go 5 rounds. The other side of the coin is, if Gastelum does get inside, then it's going to be over, and he'll win inside the distance because he will end up knocking Bisping out. I just don't know though, and the line's crazy for this. I mean, Bisping's like plus 280 now in places, which is just absolutely nuts. And Kelvin, I'm just looking now, Kelvin's is around the minus 300 mark, and the line's massively off in my opinion here. And if you are going to take a shot at Michael Bisping, my advice would be take a small shot. Don't wager anything too heavy on him, but I wouldn't hate the bet at all. And I said a minute ago, the reason why I haven't bet this fight is because of the fact Bisping's just come off a knockout loss against GSP just a few weeks ago. I read something today that he had to lose like 30 something pounds since he accepted the fight. He's had to fly over to China, obviously, so there'll be that climatizing, and there's just all these little things are just blocking me from making that bet. But ultimately, I think I have to go with my gut. I've watched the tape. I tried watching tape to try and convince myself that Weidman was going to win, but I just couldn't. I just lent Bisping again every time. So I'm going to say Michael Bisping by a really close decision. I think he does keep it on the outside. I think Kelvin does get frustrated at trying to get in. Bisping can keep away from the power shots and just grind quite a boring, tough decision out of Kelvin. But like I say, I'm not going to bet, but yeah, I just can't. Like I said, the factors of his last fight against GSP, I can't take the shot on him. So good luck if you're betting. Either side, I'm just going to be sitting back, supporting my fellow Englishman in Bisping. I hope he gets the job done. But yeah, no bet from me. So then the next fight, which is my first bet, we've got Wang against Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres. So I nearly let this one pass me, and I didn't watch tape on it straight away, but it really caught my eye with Wang. I came across his record, and it's a really good record. I'm just double checking it now. He's 16-1. So out of those 16, he's finished 12 of his opponents. So instantly that struck me as something that I thought, well, yeah, I need to really look into this guy, and I really like what I saw, to be honest. Now, the thing is with Alex Caceres is he's never overly impressed me anyway. He has these odd performances like against Yair Rodriguez where he does put in a good performance. He lost a split decision against a top prospect in Yair as well. So, I think that really raised a few people's eyebrows. But like I say, he's just really hit and miss, and I can't ever recall in any one of his fights and being overly impressed. So looking through Guan footage, he's got really powerful hands. So he throws good combinations with power. He's got a lot of flash knockouts, walk off knockouts. He just seems to stalk his fighter. His movement isn't really great. He cuts off angles very slowly, moves forward very slowly, but he looks like a really intelligent fighter in regards to he doesn't just throw shots for the sake of throwing them. He really waits to see them openings, and then he'll just hit with these really quick combinations and ultimately put his opponent away. And then I thought to myself, well, Caceres the one thing you can say about Caceres is he does have good movement. You know, he is always on the move, which is, it should be the way that he tries to win this fight here, by constantly moving. But I thought to myself, well, I'm going to check the height and the reach difference in the fight, because for some reason I thought if Wang Guan's quite small, then he might struggle to get a hold of Caceres and really get in on him to land shots. But he's actually the bigger guy, so he's the bigger guy coming in with bombs in his hands against someone that's never really impressed me anyway. So I also heard as well somewhere online that people from China are claiming that this guy's the best MMA fighter to come out of China. You know, just opinions, and you hear different things in MMA media, but I just thought it'd be something to mention. I'm not saying he is, but for people to have that opinion of him, he must be rated quite highly over there. But yeah, really impressed with his tape. I think he's going to cut off angles in this fight. I think Caceres is going to try and move out off the cage, try and circle out, but ultimately I think Wang Guan will cut off the angles, he'll stalk him, he'll push Caceres back against the cage, and like he does in all his fights, I think he'll just be really patient before throwing a combination. I think he'll throw one punch, maybe followed by another, and then that might end up turtling Caceres up against the cage, and eventually I just think he's going to land combinations which are going to drop him, and Caceres will just be waiting for the referee to pull him apart. So I've put 1.5 units on Wang Guan, plus 150 as an underdog as well, which again, really surprised about, because Caceres doesn't put in these performances where you're just like, wow, this guy's great, whereas Guan's got a bit of something about him, and I can just see him. I can see him catching Caceres with this power that looks really deceiving. Like, he doesn't, a bit like Volkanov's to me. You look at him, you look at his shots, they don't look that powerful, but he's putting guys out. I think I could see some sort of correlation here with Wang Guan. And I think when he hits Caceres, he's going to go out. So yeah, 1.5 units at plus 150. I think he's dropped a little bit now. I think he's around the plus 130 mark. So there has been some money coming in, and rightly so. But yeah, I think he gets the job done. I think he'll win inside the distance. I think he'll knock him out. Maybe late round 1, early round 2. But either way, I think it's a good shot at underdog money, definitely. So moving straight on to my next bet. I really enjoyed this tape as well. So I've got 3 units, so it's the biggest bet of the night for me. So I've got 3 units on Muslim Salikhov to beat Alex Garcia. Now, again, Salikhov, UFC debut, didn't know anything about the guy, started watching tape, and this guy's been knocking people out with some crazy stuff. So he's a Wushu Sander world champion. He's got 185 and 13 kickboxing record. So you can imagine just from that his striking is going to be absolutely legit. Wushu is a form of Kung Fu. The combat sport consists of striking and grappling. So you do have that little bit of mixture. And the Sander part, which some people call Sanshu, that adds boxing and wrestling. So Wushu Sander is basically an all-round full combat style of martial art, really. His kicks are powerful, and I mean ridiculously powerful. He's got multiple knockouts with spin back kicks, spin hook kicks, and these aren't kicks that drop fighters and then he follows up with shots to finish them off. These are kicks where he's landing them and the guy's instantly out, and he just walks off like it's absolutely nothing. There's also some footage out there of him using his hands as well. Countering, ducking under, hitting someone on the jaw, and just putting them straight out. He just hits like a brick everywhere, and it was so fun to watch. I think the tape study took me maybe about 10 minutes, just because all of his fights pretty much all of the fights end in the first round by these brutal knockouts. Now, The one thing that did concern me with the bet, and it's one of the reasons, well, it is probably the reason I haven't max bet Salikhov here, is Garcia's takedowns. So he does have a good takedown average per fight. I think it's something over the 3 takedowns per fight mark, which is quite high. There wasn't too much tape out there of Salikhov's takedown defense, so it was that side of it was a gamble. Now there is, like I say, there's some strong reasons why I bet Salikhov still, though, even though I haven't seen this takedown defense. And the first one is, I think, well, Garcia has to close the distance to start with, so he has to close the distance to take Salikhov down. You can't take somebody down without closing distance. Now, every single fighter that I've seen Salikhov fight also knows that they don't want to really, stay at range with Salikhov because of, his fighting style and his brutal knockouts. So they all seem to know that they need to close distance, but they all seem really hesitant. And at first I was like, why is he being hesitant? Get in there, clinch against him, do something. Don't leave yourself out there to be knocked out. But when I started watching these knockouts, the one common pattern that I saw with them all is they were actually hesitant because every single time that Salikhov knocked somebody out with some crazy spin back kick or spin hook kick, Salikhov timed the kick for when they were closing in. So when they start closing, when they realised, right, okay, now I'm going to close distance, that kick came and it knocked him out. And I assume all fighters do tape on their opponent, so they must have known this going in, thinking, right, I've got to be really careful with how fast I try and close the distance, the pace that I do try and close distance when I decide to go. And it just ends up making them all really hesitant to close that distance. So it's a bit of a catch-22 for them, because you've got to close the distance to beat someone like Salikhov, but they're so scared to, because Salikhov times it well and times the kicks for when they're closing in to, produce the most damage that he can from his shots. Now, the other thing about Garcia as well, and again it's another catch-22, is the guy's got really poor cardio, so he's notoriously known for gassing in fights. The problem he's going to have here is Garcia's only path to victory, in my eyes, is getting the fight to the ground, taking him down, staying in top control, just doing enough for the referee not to stand them up, and ultimately grinding out a decision. That's Garcia's biggest path to victory now. To do that, to grapple, is going to take a lot out of. It's going to require a lot of energy to do that, to shoot in, to get the takedown. Salikhov's not just going to lie on his back. He's a Dagestani-born Russian. He's going to be trying to get up or sweep or something. So he will work from bottom, and that will he'll take energy out of Salikhov, definitely. But the energy that Garcia will expend in doing that won't favour him later in the round. Later in the fight. Now, again, that's another catch-22 for him. He's got poor cardio, but what he needs to do to win this fight is going to require a decent level of cardio. Has he got that for the last 3 rounds? I really, really don't think so, and it's not something that I've seen in any of the tape of him. I've never seen him have great cardio in a fight that expends a lot of energy. So I really think he's going to struggle from that side of it as well. Now, the last thing to mention with all this is the bottom line that it comes to for me is, can Garcia go 15 minutes, 3 5-minute rounds without getting caught by something significant from Salikhov? I ask myself that question, and I answer it with no. I don't think he can go 15 minutes without getting caught with something. So then the next question is, when Salikhov catches him with something, can Garcia's chin hold up? I then answer no. Same thing again. I think Salikhov's got that much power in his hands and his kicks that if he does land something significant on Garcia, he's going to go out, or at the bare minimum, is going to hurt him, drop him, and finish him with, follow up with strikes. So I could, it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if Garcia did grind out, a decision. But having said that, I really don't see it at all. And the other thing as well is, if one of these spin back kicks, Salikhov decides to go to the body and does really catch Garcia, wins him, what's that going to do to his cardio? An already poor gas tank. It's going to make it even worse. I just think that he's in a really tough spot here, Garcia, and I think he'll know it. And I think I just think he'll come unstuck. I think he's training at TriStar, which is a great gym. So I'm sure they'll have some sort of game plan of how they think they can get past Salikhov. But ultimately, I don't think he can. I think he's going to get caught at some point in the fight. I think it's going to be early, just like the majority of his other wins. I think Garcia is going to try and close the distance quite quickly. And I think he's going to pay for it. So, like I said, I've got 3 units on Muslim Salikhov. I think I got that at -164, which was a price boost at William Hill. So anybody that's got a William Hill account, just keep an eye out for these price boosts at the minute, because they're really cool. So you just add your fighter to your bet slip, and once you go into your bet slip, you'll see a bright yellow bar telling you to click here to boost the price. There's quite a lot of UK bettors that I've been talking to that seem to be taking advantage of this as well, and yeah, it's pretty cool, so keep your eye out for that. But yeah, 3 units at -164. Ultimately, my prediction is for Muslim Salikhov to knock Garcia out, probably in the middle of round 1. So, moving on to our next bet, we've got the massively hyped Zabit Magomedsharipov versus Sheymon Moraes, who's making his UFC debut. Now, Zabit has got, like I said, ridiculous hype on him. People are really, really high on him, and rightly so. He looks exciting, he looks solid, he looks well-rounded. Again, he's another one of these Wushu Sanda fighters coming out of Dagestan in Russia. Really, really exciting prospect. But so is Sheymon Moraes in regards to being an exciting prospect, And in fact, Sheyman's actually fought the better competition. He's only lost once. That one loss was to Marlon Moraes, who we all know now, just coming off the win against Dodson, should have beaten Rafael Assunção. So Marlon Moraes is fighting the top fighters in the UFC and putting in good performances. That's Sheyman's only loss. He's been in there with Luis Palomino, beating him. So I think, and the line suggests it, the books are really, really looking past Sheymon Moraes here, and there's a lot of disrespect in this line. I'm just looking at it now. So the comeback on Zabit currently is -500, with Sheymon Moraes at a +400 underdog, which is, listen, my advice to anybody that's listening to this is you're playing with absolute fire betting Zabit in this fight, even if you throw it in a parlay of 2, 3, or however many however many legs you like to do. You're playing with fire, and you are. There's no value in the line. There's zero value in the line. When I watch tape, I did favour Zabit to win. I still think he will win. I valued the line at around -250. Now, I'm not saying that's what I thought the odds were going to be. I'm actually not surprised that the odds are where they are, because I thought Sheymon would be disrespected. I just didn't think he was going to be disrespected this much. So I saw the value at Zabit at -250, which is half of what it is right now, of what the current line is. So my advice wouldn't be to play this line. However, what I have played is the over 1.5 rounds. So I did expect it to be set at over 1.5, and pleasantly surprised to see that it was. I just think it's a good spot, both from a stylistic and a statistic point of view. A lot of these props, the overs, unders, method of victory and things like that, a lot of these do come, in my opinion, come down to more of, doing your statistical research rather than being really heavy on tape. And I've actually got a really good record on BetMMA.tips as well with my props. They're actually one of my more profitable areas of betting. So I do seem to do quite well on them. Now, just from a stylistic point of view with their fighting styles, so Zabit Magomedsharipov is a really free-flowing, quick-moving, flashy striker. Really, really fun to watch. Whereas you get Sheymon Moraes, who's a much slower but technical fighter, so he doesn't mind someone moving crazy around him. He'll just push forward and do what he does. He really likes to break fighters down with leg kicks, slowing them down, and ultimately, fighting in the pocket and trying to get that finish. And I think both styles here will clash and neutralise. So I really don't think Moraes is going to mind Zabit, moving around, trying to be really flashy. I think he'll just stick to what he does best. He'll move forward. He'll pop these leg kicks off. I don't see him breaking Zabit down, because if he breaks him down, he'll probably win the fight, and I don't believe he's going to win the fight, regardless of what I think about the line. I still think Zabit's going to win here. But yeah, he's not going to break him down, but I think if he lands a few of these leg kicks, he could definitely slow Zabit down. Once Zabit slows down, he'll then be a little bit out of his comfort zone. But I still think he'll be able to land enough on Moraes. And to be honest with you, even though Moraes has fought better competition than Zabit has, this is both fighters' biggest fight to date in regards to the quality of their opposition. So this is the best fighter that Sheymon's ever fought, and this is the best fighter that Zabit's ever fought. And I think coming together here, it's going to show. I think they might both be a little nervy to start with. Ultimately, I think Zabit's going to win by a decision, but we only need the 1.5 here, so we only need it to go halfway through the fight, and I think that's actually a really good bet. I think it got really offline as well from Marathon when they posted. I got it at -118, which at the time it was, I still think it is around the -160 mark, which I still see value in, to be honest. But yeah, I saw it at -118, and I had to check it a few times just to make sure I was right with what I was seeing. So I put 1.5 units on it. I was considering going 2 units at the original price at -160, but I saw it at -118. I thought, that's got ridiculous value in. So I thought, I don't need to play as much as what I would have had to at -160 for the returns that I wanted. So I just think, from a stylistic point of view, I just think it's a, it will go the distance, or definitely late into the fight. Now, I mentioned the statistic point of view, and most fighters both guys in most of their fights have gone over 1.5 rounds. So if you look at the records, there's some that are actually really close that have ended like late round 2, but you take that. If it's over 1.5, it's over 1.5. It doesn't make a difference whether it's a second, a minute, a round, or if it goes to a decision. So yeah, stylistically, I think they'll both fight each other in a way that will prolong the fight. Also, if Zabit tries to go for a takedown, if he does start slowing down, that can waste minutes on the clock. And like I say, they're both used to going the full distance of the fight. So yeah, I think it's a really good bet, and it's one that I would definitely recommend in this fight. If you want to bet the fight, I wouldn't bet the straight pick, purely because I don't think there's any value on Zabit, and I won't bet Moraes because even though he does have value, I don't think he's going to win. And I would just never recommend betting a fighter that you think is going to lose it just because they've got a good line. But yeah, I think if you wanted to bet the fight, the over 1.5 is definitely the best bet to make for the potential outcome and also for the line. So yeah, 1.5 units at -118 on over 1.5 rounds. Which takes me on to my last bet of the night. So, weirdly, even though I haven't put as much on this as what I put on Muslim Salikhov that I mentioned earlier on, it's probably my most confident pick of the night. It's actually Sherman versus Shamil Abdurakhimov. Now, anybody that knows me well knows that I love to bet wrestlers. It's my thing. I read, I understand the wrestling and the grappling quite well. So I do really get a good lean on wrestlers and who they're fighting and things like that. So I love betting wrestlers. I tend to win most of my bets that I put on wrestlers, but in particular the ones that are from Dagestan in Russia, because they've just got that thing about them, like Khabib. They've got that wrestling background drilled into them from a young age. Well, most of them have anyway. So it is the type of fighter that I absolutely love to bet, and that's exactly what Shamil Abdurakhimov is. He's also, weirdly, I've never mentioned this so many times in my life, but he's also a Wushu Sanda world champion. He's got a Master of Sports in Wushu Sanda and kickboxing. So instantly you're thinking the guy's got a great stand-up. He's got that wrestling base. He's got takedown. He's got a decent takedown average per fight. I was thinking to myself, right, okay, I got really excited to bet Shamil here. So I watched tape, solely convinced that I'm going to bet Shamil. And weirdly, I've not, even though he's been around in the UFC for quite a while, I'd actually not really seen too much of him for some reason. I'm not quite sure why or how that came about, but I started watching tape on him, just hoping that I see this aggressive pressure, pushing against the cage, clinching, wearing the fighters down, getting the solid takedowns, controlling top position, really putting it on the guys. And honestly, I couldn't have been more wrong. It was crazy. I was gobsmacked with what I saw from Shamil. So the first fight I watched was the Walt Harris fight, which I didn't even know that he'd fought Walt Harris as well. So again, just a few little surprises that popped up here with Shamil. So because I didn't know that he fought Walt Harris, I also didn't see the result either. So I sort of watched that fight with no bias and not knowing what was going to happen really. Well, if anything, I did have a bias because I really wanted to bet Shamil in this spot, but I found that his takedowns were just, he didn't set them up. He didn't set them up well at all. He was shooting from far out. You could see it from a mile off. The second he actually got hold of the guy, he was giving up on them really quickly without even attempting to try and force Walt Harris back against the cage and really try and dig a takedown out, which I would imagine that's something that he would do, but he didn't, and he was so underwhelming. I was sat there watching tape, just thinking that I expected really good things from this guy, and he tried it so many times. The one thing I will say though about Shamil, the one thing that he does do really well, he's got a really good kick catch takedown. So catching kicks and getting takedowns from him, that is something that he can do, and he has been successful in his previous fights. He caught a kick of Walt's pretty early on, tried to get him down. He caught numerous kicks from Derek Lewis, and although that, I'll move on to that a little bit later, but yeah, ultimately his wrestling is really nowhere near where I thought it was going to be, and it's actually quite poor. I still can't get over it now thinking about it. But then I saw his striking, and his striking, again, I just don't think it's great. He doesn't move well. He's quite static. He's quite slow. He doesn't seem to have a huge deal of power either. Now, what was happening in the Walt Harris fight is Walt was the one that was going first in the striking exchanges, and Shamil just looked to counter. That's all he does. Well, not all he does, but the majority of his striking game is looking to counter his opposition. But most, especially at this high level of the UFC, most fighters won't still be standing there waiting for the counter. You know, they'll be in and out. They might even be there for the counter. So it's a bit of a weird approach, really. However, he did end up beating Walt Harris. Now, I didn't agree with the decision totally, but it was a ridiculously close fight. So it was a split decision win for Shamil. I scored it to Walt Harris, but it wasn't a robbery or anything. It's just, you know, I saw things a little differently. But Walt Harris was landing his punches and staying there waiting to be hit by the counter, and that's the reason Shamil won that fight. If Walt Harris moved out every time that he'd landed his shot or shots or combination, he would have won that fight quite comfortably. He just fought it really badly. He was new. I think it was quite early on in his UFC career as well. So, you know, maybe a lack of experience there lost him the fight. But ultimately, that's what happened. But still, Shamil couldn't get a regular takedown on him. He tried quite a few times. He just couldn't get that takedown. Walt Harris, you know, I don't think he's the greatest defensive wrestler, but he was seeing them from a mile off, which you could, and then Shamil was just giving up on them, and then moving away, and then Harris would come forward and then start going forward in the striking exchanges. So it was just a common pattern. Now, I thought to myself, well, how has Shamil got a decent takedown average per fight? So I went and looked through his fights, and I saw he took Derek Lewis down 7 times. I thought, okay, maybe he had an off fight against Walt Harris. You know, Walt Harris was, you know, defended takedowns a little better than he expected. So then I looked into the Derek Lewis fight, and I think the reason I missed this fight when it actually happened on the card is because it was a Sunday card and I was working the following Monday. I had to be up early for work, so because that fight was a main event, that's why I missed it. So I watched the fight anyway, and man, those 7 takedowns, sorry, it was 5 takedowns, not 7. Those 5 takedowns that he got on Derek Lewis was definitely not Shamil doing something great and Lewis just getting beaten by greatness. Derek Lewis was throwing these like slow looping head kicks with his left leg, which is ironically the leg that Shamil seems to catch best when he does these catch kick takedowns. And he was throwing these kicks at the head so slow, and he got caught with it every time. Every time Shamil caught, every time Lewis ended up on his back. So then I was just sat there thinking, well, I've still not seen anything great in Shamil. Yeah, he caught the head kicks, but seriously, they're that slow and like telegraphed. It couldn't have been any easier for Shamil to take Lewis down. Lewis pretty much handed him these takedowns. So then, just out of interest, I thought, okay, I'll check what Derek Lewis's takedown defense is like, just to make sure. And then I saw Roy Nelson had 7 takedowns on him. So now I'm convinced that that's actually Derek Lewis just being really poor with his fight IQ and his takedown defense, rather than Shamil actually doing anything great. So then I think, well, okay, I'm going to have to stop here and watch some of Chase Sherman. Didn't really have to watch too many of Chase Sherman's fights. I have actually seen a lot. Well, I've seen all of them. I've seen every single fight that he's had since he came into the UFC. I don't tend to forget a lot of things, but you know, I watched a bit of tape anyway, just to make sure, and it just pretty much reiterated what I already thought in my head. And I think, well, Grabowski tried taking Sherman down quite a bit. They ended up turning into desperation takedown, so I can't put too much stock in it. But nonetheless, he tried to take Sherman down. Sherman was noticing the takedowns. They were actually, in my opinion, set up better than how Shamil sets his takedowns up. I'm not saying Grabowski is a better wrestler or a better grappler, but he was setting them up better than Shamil was. But Sherman was reading them really well, getting under hooks, breaking, circling away, coming back again with his striking. So he showed quite a good takedown defense, in my opinion, there, because he was doing the right things to stop Grabowski taking the fight to where he wanted it to. And then you look at Sherman striking, which is getting better and better each fight. this is a huge step up for him. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But you can only beat the guys that are put in front of you convincingly, and that's what he's been doing. And the performance that he put in against Damian Grabowski was so crisp. It was really good. You know, you can't knock him for anything. He was using his range well. When Grabowski was coming forward, Sherman spotted it. He quickly moved out of range. That was then frustrating Grabowski, but then he would go back into range. He'd be landing combinations. It wouldn't just be one shot or one shot, two shot. It'd be landing combinations, finishing with leg kicks or starting with leg kicks and going in with his hands. You know, really mixing it up against Grabowski, and he put in a solid performance. And I think that in this fight with Shamil, I think he can stuff those takedowns because he'll see them coming. There is an argument if Shamil does get hold of Sherman, push him against the cage, wastes time on the clock, will the judges see, you know, score that in favour of Shamil? You know, it's not guaranteed anymore with the new rules if China adopt them. But it's also not something that you see a lot from Shamil anyway. You don't really see him press fighters up against the cage for prolonged periods of time. So ultimately, I think this fight is going to be a stand-up war where I think Sherman's faster. I think he's got better footwork. He's got better boxing. He's going to be in and out of range. He's got better range management. I'm not saying he's a perfect fighter because he's not, and this is going to be a real test for him. And he does have some quite big holes in his own striking. So, things such as he moves his head after he throws his combination of punches rather than moving his head along with the punches, which is really poor. And I think a greater striker in this division is going to punish him for that. But weirdly, I think just taking that hole as an example, I think that's actually going to benefit him in this fight because Abdurakhimov looks for the counters, so he's going to be waiting for, well, not waiting, but Sherman's going to be going first with the shots, and then after he's done, Shamil's going to look to counter the punches, and it's only when Sherman stops his combination that he throws his head, which is poor striking. But after the combination stop, that'll be when Shamil goes, but then that'll also be when Sherman moves his head. So it's even his hole, even that hole can be a benefit to him, and I'm just really confident in him. I can't see a Shamil win. Like, if he did win, again, you know, if he did turn up and caught some kicks and grinded out a decision, again, not the biggest shock in the world, but I expect Sherman to stay on the outside here, pick him apart, really control the pace of the fight, and just not really let Shamil have any sort of advantage. And yeah, I've got 2.5 units on Chase Sherman at an underdog price as well. Like, I really love this line. I got him at plus 126. So he's not a huge underdog, but he's got a plus in front of his line, which is always great when you've got a strong lean. So yeah, I've got 2.5 units on Chase Sherman. I don't think he knocks Shamil out. Shamil is tough, but I think Sherman will ultimately win a comfortable decision. So yeah, just to wrap up the bets for the card. So I've got 1.5 units on Wang to beat Alex Caceres at plus 150. I've got 3 units on Muslim Salikhov to beat Alex Garcia at minus 164. I've got the Zabit, Magomedsharipov and Sheymon Moraes fight to go over 1.5 rounds at minus 118. I've put 1.5 units on that. And then finally, I've got 2.5 units on Chase Sherman to beat Shamil Abdurakhimov at plus 126. So, just quickly, for anyone that's interested, this is where the fun bit comes. The quick fires on a lot of the fighters that didn't have tape. So basically, what I do with my tape, I'll just quickly run over this while we've got time. What I personally do is I look at a fight card. I don't watch tape on all the fights because Some are quite clear that I know I'll not have a lean, so I'll waste time. Not only will I waste time on valuable tape study, you also get a lot of burnout as well. So when you've watched a lot of fights, you start to really get tired. Once you get tired, you start not being as sharp as what you want to be. So it's better to use your time in the fights that you think you might have a lean. Even, sometimes that might turn out to be, a pass. But ultimately, I don't tape study every fight for that reason. So these fights that I'm about to quick fire, I haven't tape studied any of them. The first one I didn't tape study because I knew both fights pretty well and I knew it would be a pass. But most of them are these, Chinese debutants, or we've got a debutant from India as well. There's just, I think the Indian one has tape, but some of these fighters I've heard just have zero tape out there. So it's quite tough to really give a solid decision on any of these quick fires. So my advice would be, after you hear the quick fires, my advice would be just pass on them. Don't take them with any sort of solid lean, because it's really not that at all. Like, I've not bet these fights for a reason, but we'll go through them anyway. And I know some people are really, really looking out for how I pronounce some of these Chinese names. So the first fight on the quickfire is actually the co-main event of the night, which is, I'm actually really excited for this fight. I think it's going to be a good fight. I have a lean, but not good enough to bet. So we've got Jingliang versus Zak Ottow. And my lean was Zak Ottow. He was an underdog. Well, he is an underdog. I think he's roughly around the plus 140, plus 150 mark. So you could get a decent comeback on him. He's quite a solid fighter. Doesn't make too many mistakes. Whereas Jingliang is also a tough fighter. He's got a bit of wrestling, but he does like to stand and bang. His cardio is okay. His fight IQ I don't think is the absolute best. But ultimately, the reason I didn't bet Zak Ottow here is because in his last fight, I think it was against Kunimoto, he started the fight really strongly. I think I bet on him that night as well. He started the fight really strongly. I was really liking what I was seeing from him. But then halfway through the fight, he just completely turned the opposite way and really let the fight start to slip away from him. I think he ended up winning a split decision. It was the right decision, but nonetheless, he was beating the guy comfortably for the first half of the fight, and just completely, the tables completely turned. It was really weird to see. So those reservations just put me off that bet completely. But ultimately, he was a slight lean, so I think Zak Ottow will get that win, probably by decision. Next, we've got Kenan versus Bobby Nash. Don't really know too much about Kenan, to be honest. I mean, we've seen a bit of Nash. He's fought Jingliang before as well. That was a good fight. We've got Kenan he's 11-3. Mixture between knockouts and submissions. Same sort of physique as Bobby Nash. So I'm going to have to go with Bobby Nash just because he's the more, I think in this spot is the more proven fighter. He's fought better competition. He just seems to find a way to lose in some fights. I said that about Will Brooks last week. It's not quite as bad as, well, not quite on that level, but yeah, I'm going Bobby Nash, and I think he'll win a decision. The next one, we've got Kailin Curran against Xaionan. Now, I see a lot of people fading Kailin Curran, and rightly so. She's 4-5 in the UFC. She's not a great fighter. Xaionan's 7-1 on the Chinese MMA scene. You know what? I'm gonna join the rest of the Twitter crew, and I'll fade Kailin Curran. I think Xaionan, hometown, well, at home, sorry. I think Kailin Curran probably on her way out. I can't really trust her, really, to be honest with you, in this fight. So yeah, well, I'll go for the girl at home in Xaionan. Probably by decision. Most women fights go over 2.5 rounds, so I'll go decision there. The next one, we've got Yadong Song against Bharat Khandare. Just picking up a few things that I'm hearing on Twitter. Again, I haven't taped this at all. I don't think Yadong Song's got. I think he's one of the fighters that've got minimal to no tape. But Khandare, I've heard, looks quite good. He's the guy from India. Apparently he's a relentless wrestler. Good top control, decent cardio. And like I said earlier in the podcast, we all know that I love wrestlers, so ultimately I'll go for Khandare to win a decision. And then the next one, we've got another women's MMA fight. We've got Yanan Wu against Gina Mazany. Now, Gina's another one that's, a bit like Kailin Curran. People are fading her quite a lot. I don't think it's as justified as Curran. I'm not saying it's not justified, but Gina Mazany's first UFC fight was, I could be wrong with this, but I'm sure it was short notice. Could be wrong with that, but it was against Sarah McMahon either way. And McMahon's one of the best in the division. I know she's coming off a loss against Ketlen Vieira, but regardless, she's a good wrestler. She's a good finisher for the women's MMA as well. So I don't think you can put too much stock in the Mazany loss against McMahon, because McMahon will do that to a lot of women in that division. Yanan Wu 9-1. Weirdly, she's got a lot of knockouts as well on her record, which you very rarely see with women's MMA. Ultimately, I'm going to pick Gina Mazany. I think, again, don't really know much about Yanan Wu, but the fact that Gina's already experienced the UFC and she went in there against one of the best in the world at that weight, she could have taken a lot from that loss. A lot of the best MMA fighters, current and previous, have become that better fighter from a loss. So, no confidence, but I'll pick Gina Mazany, and again by decision. Next one, we've got Luigi Buran against Rolando D. Now, we've seen quite a bit of D lately, and weirdly he also retired and then a week later took this fight, so bit of a strange one there. Again, just common thing here. I don't really know too much about Luigi Buran. 10-4, strong mixture between submissions and decision wins. But although D's not great, he came back quite well against. He started badly against Alex Caceres in his UFC debut. He came back reasonably okay. Did end up getting stopped, but by that point he'd already been pretty beaten up. Then he fought Teruto Ishihara in his last fight. Again, started quite badly, really came back into it, and he would have won the fight, or at least took a draw. I think it was the draw. I think Ishihara beat him. I think he scored a 10-8 in the first round. D took both round 2 and round 3 10-9. Well, would have been 10-9 in my opinion. So that would have given it the draw. But he hit Ishihara with 2 groin strikes, and the second one nearly made me throw up while I was watching it. It was the worst groin strike I've ever seen in my life. It couldn't have been any more powerful, any more on the button, so to speak, and the ref rightly took a point off him, which gave Teruto the win, I believe. Let's just double checking now. I'm sure it went that way. It was something weird. Yeah, I was right. Yeah, it would have been a draw, but he ended up losing because of that groin strike. So yeah, he didn't look too bad. Like I say, I don't really know too much about Buran, but Rolando D's had a couple of UFC fights now and not to look too bad, so I'll take him to win here again by decision. And last, we've got Cyril Asker against Yaozhong Hu. Now, Asker was supposed to be fighting James Mulheron. Mulheron's pulled out, got pulled from the card, being popped by USADA. So this is a really short notice call up for Yaozhong Hu. He's 3-0, so quite new to MMA it seems. I don't think he's finished all his 3 fights. He's got 2 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. Asker, again, not a great fighter at all. Really, really easy fighter to fade, to be honest. But I think the short notice for the Chinese fighter here is just going to be, and the debut, and the fact he's only had 3 pro fights. I think it might end up being a little bit too much for him. So I'll go for Asker by knockout, maybe a takedown, ground and pound. But again, no confidence in it. I've not seen any tape of Yadong, so I'm going with Asker just purely on experience. So yeah, that does it for the podcast. Mr. Namreka, hopefully he'll be back next week. We've got 2 cards next week. We've got the tough finale and UFC 218. So we should have 2 separate podcasts next week. I don't think we're going to do one podcast for both cards, just because some people might not be interested in the tough finale cards. Some people might only want to hear about UFC 218. So I think we'll do it separately. But yeah, I mean, ultimately you can I don't think I'm not putting any more bets on for this card. I am all betted up. Nothing else will present itself to me so much that it'll make me bet it. So you can see all my bets on my betmma.tips page. So that's just betmma.tips/Newsome MMA. There's also written breakdowns on my website as well, which is newsomemma.co.uk. If you type in /bet-picks, you can go straight to my bet picks. You can see what I bet on. I've got a couple on there as well for future cards if you're interested to see what I bet on. So yeah, that wraps it up for this. Just a quick one from a UK point of view. It starts at 8:45 in the morning, I think, on Saturday. So nice early one for us. We're not having to stay up till 6 AM. So yeah, please subscribe, like, comment, follow me on Twitter at Newsome_MMA. Yeah, thank you very much. We'll be back next week for 2 cards. So I hope you enjoy this one. Cheers.